All right. Welcome to Halitics. I'm Hal Ginsberg. So glad to be joined by comic Liz Croydon today. And we've got kind of a little juxtaposition. It's kind of a paradox. She's a comic. She's a comedian. So she's going to be funny. You always are. And I'm hearing myself. That is something I have got to stop. There we go. I hope no one else heard that. So Liz, yeah, we're going to be talking about, genocide, the world's worst possible thing. But we also want to talk about your comedic styling. So how do you do that? Because you've got to talk, they say there's nothing off limits, right? In a comedy show.
That's right, Hal. I go in there and I kill. I slay hard. I make certain there is no frown left alive. I flood the streets with laughter, and then I tell people to walk on water. That's what I do. That's what I'm after. And I'd just like to point up for the record that I have rhymed with laughter. My comedy is rated G, as in, gee, I wish this genocide would stop.
It's just the worst thing. And I know Jerry Seinfeld used to get, in trouble because he would allegedly, make light of the Holocaust. What we're seeing today is a modern day. Well, I called the climate catastrophe the new Holocaust because the whole planet's on fire.
That is what's really going on here. I mean, come on. That is what the real Holocaust is that and no one is paying attention to it. We're all supposed to be very distracted. And it is horrifying, the implications of this particular conflict in composition with our mining, the raw materials of the world, in composition with all the other military conflicts. It doesn't bode well for the environment. So if I am forced to suck my New York tap water down with a paper straw, I think the least that we can do on the war front is find some environmentally friendly bombs. I mean, I'm a little bit tired of being blamed for the destruction of the planet when the planet is being destroyed by bombs.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to find environmentally friendly bombs, Liz. That's a challenge.
No,
I don't know that anyone's found them. I mean,
the first thing they did was criminalize Greta Thunberg, who's trying to clean up the planet. What are the implications of this? I am very, very, very disturbed. And you know what? As an old jaded Washingtonian, I think the whole war team needs to get better marketers. They are clearly trying to market genocide to everyone. Maybe it should be marketed Gen Exercide. Maybe they should walk it further and call it Gen Exercising. Yeah, you're so right.
You're working out some new material here.
Why not?
You got to be topical. Seems like most of us have turned against this and turned against supporting Israel, except for our electeds. They can't get right here. They can't get it right. They just seem hell bent on World War III.
Well, I'm really happy that other people get it right, like Norm Ornstein's calling for Netanyahu to be pulled out of power. I'm really happy to see the country of Bolivia pull out of supporting Israeli products during this time. It's a very difficult time. That there are no words, and I don't like to refer to any of what's happening as biblical. And I'm mighty disturbed that there are so many people in office referring to these times and these happenings as biblical, from the Speaker Johnson to Bibi's language about seeing a prophecy come true. I am a prophet looking for a prophet. And I think every prophet is. And I do my best not to profit off of war. While I kill, my audience leaves my club alive. Everybody gets out of my wars alive.
So, why do we use that expression "kill" when you're on stage, and if you've got the audience, just laughing uproariously, that's considered killing. And if you are standing up there and nobody's laughing and they're just sitting on their hands looking for the exits, that's dying out there. So do you have any idea where that came from?
I have a couple ideas. You have caught me unprepared to speak about my own craft. But of course, when Cheech and Chong were being honored and I was hired to come out and introduce them for the Maryland marijuana public policy project or marijuana policy project. You'll have to excuse me. I have a head injury and I just got out of the hospital.
Ooh,
so
I'm sorry.
That's all right. I'm sorry because now I'm in the point where I have to prepare what I'm going to speak on so that I know what I know. But
well, you're going to be in Pennsylvania, so they've got a senator.
When Chong was watching me laugh, he was stonewalling me, which means that he was like, "Oh, that was funny. Let's see what else you have. Oh, that was funny. Let's see what else you have." I'm still not going to laugh. I know that everyone else in this room is laughing, but I'm not going to laugh. And then when I finally hit in the name of John, Paul, George, and Ringo, and he began his laugh from the very bottom of his DNA, and he laughed in spite of himself. I saw it grow in his chest up to his face. He fought his own face. I killed him. I killed his will to resist. Sometimes you can get someone, and this is what I love about my experience at the Comedy Store, is that you can get someone who completely disagrees with you and finds what you are saying so offensive to laugh at you because what you're saying is funny. And I really enjoy laughing at people that don't share my perspective. It's a great reminder that in order to have world peace, there needs to be dialogue, not an automatic argument. I've been looking at all of this language on Twitter where people are like, in a normal war. And I'm like, wait a minute. Let's not use that language. Let's not normalize war. And Bernie's up there. Bernie's like, there should be, we're bombing indiscriminately. Well, since when is there discriminate bombing? Except on stage. And really, I was bombing indiscriminately when I was 3 months into comedy and talked myself into opening for Dave Attell. That was bombing indiscriminately. What's happening right now is genocide. And then, before I give you back your show, Hal, what I have been told by my elders at the store, and this could be an urban myth, you would need someone to back me up on this, is that a stand-up guy comes from maybe the mafia, and, maybe you've made an error. Like I could be telling a false story right now. And the boss calls you in front of him. Everybody knows you're guilty. What was your mistake? Why'd you mess up? You have one shot here. Well, I've never been right or left, boss. I've always been in the middle. I can do this with my fingers. And the boss laughs and he goes, oh, that's a stand-up guy. And I'll let him live. And so when you're killing in an audience, you're surviving the show. Or maybe you're changing a mind. Or you're taking a foe and you're creating a friend in the end. That is what I understand the specific term stand-up to come from. and it could be completely wrong. Someone at the Comedy Store could have pulled me in the back and told me a story and pulled my leg for the glory of it. Who knows if the information I have is correct?
Well, I was thinking of something you said there when you mentioned laughing at people you don't agree with. And I was thinking there was maybe the first, the guy who kind of invented stand-up comedy is a guy named Frank Fay from 100 years ago. And he was one of the nastiest, most unpleasant people who ever lived. He was a real Nazi. He actually was a true Nazi. They had a fundraiser for him called the Friends of Frank Fay at Madison Square Garden. It was a bunch of real Nazis, and there was, beating up. There were some Jewish people. He was also a wife beater. His first wife was, what's her famous Barbara Stanwyck, the great actress Barbara Stanwyck.
Goodness, yes.
And he was physically abusive to her. I think he was arrested a couple times. So he was one of the most unpleasant people who ever lived, and yet he was known to be one of the funniest people also. And they would do, laugh offs and stuff, or last comic standing. And he would kill everyone. He was like, he would insult Milton Berle for being Jewish and everything, and he would just crush Berle. He would, just they just said he was as bad as he was. He was hilarious.
I'm very, very sad about that. But the other glorious thing is that, if someone who disagrees with you is only armed with comedy, everybody gets out alive. Everyone, like one of the most tragic things about this situation, and there are so many, so why compare which tragic situation is more than the other? I should correct my own language, but one of the things that really disturbs me is the fallout from this disagreement, where people who want to see Palestine liberated want you to side with them and only them. And if obviously Israel wants everyone to simply side with them and let them get away with genocide, and no one is siding with the nonviolent. And it's always the nonviolent people that get persecuted first, that don't want to join the army, that don't want to get in the parade. Because, I don't know. Maybe we don't honor the nonviolent enough. Like maybe we should be honoring Henry Sturrenberg, who got some idiot to sit down at a luncheon and talk him out of bombing a country named Fredonia, run by Groucho Marx. And he doesn't get any credit because he talked them out of violence. Why is violence the glorifying factor in so many statues? It's
a great question. Upsetting. I'll try to offer a response in a moment. But you did, or I did, or we both have been mentioning genocide. So just really quickly want to put this up on the screen there. The former director in New York for human rights at the United Nations has left. He resigned last week because he feels that the UN isn't doing enough to protect Palestinian civilians from what he calls, and I think fairly, is genocide. We're going to hear more about why Craig Mokeber calls it genocide in a moment. But your question, and I think maybe it's clearly related, Liz, as to why we glorify the warriors and the war makers and we don't glorify the peacemakers, is really an interesting one. I would note that we do have a religion, right? I mean, the Christian faith is built around the Prince of Peace. That's one of the nicknames for Christ. And he was indeed a peacemaker.
He started a lot of wars.
Well, I mean, in his name, right? We've got a lot of names, a lot of wars starting. I'm not Christian, I'm Jewish. And our Judeo-Christian God is responsible for many massacres and slaughters in the
A lot
Old
of gods
Testament.
are responsible for a lot of slaughters. So I just say we chuck them all out. That's what I am
interesting
done with
though
religions.
that Christianity does really they do worship, I guess is the right word, somebody who did praise peace. So the religion gets credit there. Unfortunately, I think someone, I forget who said it, maybe it was Gandhi. I like your Christ, it's just your Christians I have a problem with, and I think that's pretty fair. I think that's pretty accurate.
People that want to kill will always try to find an excuse. Like their Jesus, it's like everybody's not allowed to kill except for me. God told me I could kill. The whole European war history is all based on one cousin writing a letter to another cousin and saying, "Hey, man, my God says my church is the shiznets, and your church
You've been doing so well, by the way. I want to give you credit. We talked about this.
G as in guinea pigs.
Yes.
My comedy is I am so clean.
We actually had a very good response to your last appearance, which I was gratified by. So, Liz, I do want, so the genocide, the thing about if you look at the first epic poem in our history is the Iliad, right? In the Western canon anyway, is the Iliad, which is about the Trojan War.
I get why people, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to break up.
Go
I would
ahead.
love to discuss the Iliad. I get why we glorify war, because the winners dictate what gets built. And so the first people that get killed on either side are the pacifists. They're like, "Hey, man, I know that you feel really strongly about this issue, but I just don't believe in killing anyone. I'm going to be over here reading my book." And both sides are like, "You're out." Because it's easy to take the unarmed guy out. So we never write the history. You never hear Ben Sternberg's version of how, he talked Fredonia out of becoming a world power because he was killed by Groucho Marx.
I don't think that's how Duck Soup went, but I haven't seen it in about 35 years, so I may have it off a little bit. But so I'll defer to you on.
This is my whole argument about God. This is my whole argument about the Bible here, because there was a fight in heaven, right? And then God won. Lucifer was cast out. So God's writing the Bible, right? So we all cast Lucifer, that only wanted man to have knowledge, as the bad guy. But is man having knowledge that bad? I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Lucifer was giving Eve a decent breakfast of an apple, right? Just like the Black Panthers. Eve, the snake, was feeding the community and giving away knowledge, just like the Black Panthers. The devil could have been the first civil rights lawyer, and we messed up. There's so many different myths all over the world about some serpent wing creature that comes down from the heavens and teaches everyone agriculture, hygiene, art, language. And so, it is the victor that wins. And until the peacemongers come up with a way to stop the people that kill, we will still have killing. And
it's true what you said also, about how people, the myths are those who bring knowledge are doing something wrong. Like Prometheus, right? Bringing fire to man, and then he's tied to a rock and an eagle has to peck at his belly throughout eternity.
Right.
It's a pretty horrible image, by the way.
It is. I was devastated by the Greek myths. My parents, I had the best upbringing in Washington, D.C. And my mom and dad would take me to the National Museum of Art. And the first thing they had to do was explain to me the naked statues. That was shocking. But in explaining that to me, the naked statues were art. The Greek myths came out, and those myths are huge. Like Zeus is a god of thunder, and he decides that he has a crush on some chick, and so he chases him down from a mountain, and she says, "No, man." So he turns her into some sort of inanimate object, and that's the end of it. But what?
Well,
it's pretty crazy stuff, man.
Those are your Greek myths. I mean, I don't know what else.
Right?
That's it.
So this dude is up on a mountain and he gives a bunch of commandments, and he comes down and we're all just supposed to abide by them. It's all myths. Netanyahu is justifying his genocide based on some myth. He's calling the Palestinian people Amaltek, some kind of mythic creature.
Yeah, he uses has he done that? I know he's using the biblical names for the territories that Israel is invading and conquering, but I didn't know he's referring to them as, that's really interesting, isn't it? Well, I guess it works. I mean, the Christians here too, what do you call, like, the ones who believe the Bible is completely true? The
freaks, right
no, they want Israel there too, because I think it's like means the next coming of the.
They all want it. All of these extremists, are very interested in Israel, and they're probably going to lose out. Like, first of all, they've probably bombed the second coming of Christ, okay? Christ is probably dead under the rubble, or the Messiah, because Christ never came, right, in the Jewish faith. So Jesus is a washout, like he's a myth. So the Messiah, he's probably dead underneath that rubble that BB just dropped. Like, what is it? It's like 33,000 tons of explosives were dropped. It's like Fukushima and then some. It's
so awful. I don't even know how this is really that's again when we start to lose words, right? Because I don't know. I mean, that's the thing. So I do want to get this video. Let's see if I can get it. I'm going to try to play this, Liz. Let's see. I can show it. I don't know if this is this UN official. And let's see if we can hear him. It doesn't look like we can. I can see him speak. There we go.
Of the House in the UN. And I really believe they've abandoned those workers as well as abandoning people on the ground. I know that genocide is a very politicized term. I know it's often abused. It is, because of the politics, sometimes denied where it exists and asserted where it does not exist. But strictly as a matter of international law, there are a couple of exceptional things here. One is the number of specific acts in the UN Genocide Convention that have been perpetrated by Israel against the civilian population of Gaza, including intentionally.
All right, so we got some of that in. I don't know if you could catch that.
I have no idea what he said.
You could not hear what he said?
In the UN.
No. I had a little issue there, but I know he's talking about using the term genocide and how it's the only one you can use because of a variety of different metrics or tests that you would use targeting civilians on many occasions. It's not just one. And there you can see him speaking. I'll take that off. So it's just, we got to use that word. Now, I want to play this because you and I met, I think, I might be wrong, Liz, but we both supported Bernie, right? Am I right about that?
Did.
That was a major.
No, we supported Bernie.
And I'm disappointed. I assume you are as well.
Well, I have things to say about it, but let's go.
Well, I want to hear what you have to say. Here he is on CNN. He's clearly not the worst, but I think we expect better. I think we clearly expect better. Let's get Bernie up there.
Mr. President, the American people are not with you on this one. We will remember in 2024.
That last
So
screen
we'll get to Bernie's response there, but there's Rashida Tlaib.
I love her.
And so you really like what she had to say there. Me too.
I love everything about her.
She has been a real breath of fresh air in a mostly corrupt and feckless, cowardice-filled government of ours.
Yeah, well, she's fighting for her life. This is her. She's a Palestinian American. So this is her fight, and I am delighted that she has a voice so powerful the GOP is interested in censoring it. I love that about her, and we couldn't have a better ally.
Let's see what we think of Bernie as an ally. Here we go.
Joe Biden supported the genocide of the Palestinian people. I know you know the definition of genocide. It is defined as a crime committed with intent to destroy a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group. Do you think that's what Israel is doing here?
Now, I think Dana Bash is really trying so hard to divide the left here. She so wants to get Bernie to criticize Rashida Tlaib, or if not, to isolate Bernie, right, and put him out there on a far left island with Tlaib. And I, for one, wish he would go out on that island. I want him to say, yeah, it's genocide. What are you talking about? Of course it is. And throw it right back in her face. But but Bernie won't do that. Here we go.
What's going on right now is a horror show. We don't have to quibble about words. Thousands of men, women, and children are being killed. It has got to end right now. And one of the things that concerns me, Dana, is there has not been enough talk about what right-wing Republicans are doing right now. They don't want any aid to go to the Palestinians. Somebody should be talking about that.
So do you like the way he pivoted and turned it to the Republicans?
I love Bernie Sanders. I love him. I am a Washingtonian first before any of my left, right inclinations kick in. He is an excellent politician, and I love how he pivots, and I love how he will go toe-to-toe with warmongers. I love that about him.
I want him to take on his own party. I do. I just don't think it's enough. He does to a degree.
I want to know what they have on Bernie. I want to know. Oh, I don't know how. Look, I'm really jaded from where I grow up, and how I grew up and how I was taught politics. And you get these presidents in there. And, he's a peanut farmer. Oh, he's the first black president. And they have their children and they think they're going to make this change and they're going to be the one that makes world peace. And the Pentagon sits them down and the military industrial complex that has been running our outposts all over the world says, son, you're our puppet. You're going to make this look good. Maybe we'll let you do some stuff. And that's how it rolls down. And I think that every person that goes up against the Pentagon faces threats one way or the other. Now, Bernie was a very successful presidential candidate. Our revolution was huge. I was not on the inside of his campaign. I was moved by his campaign because I remember when he was first elected to office and my closet liberal government serving father said, Lizzie, I want you to watch this Phil Donahue with me. This is a man who says he's a socialist and I never thought he would be elected. He's a really good guy. And he's up against all of these people that don't stand for the working class. It's going to be really interesting to watch his career. And then, when I was on the inside, to a degree, of the late Mike Gravel's presidential campaign, who was number one in the polls when he critiqued Hillary Clinton.
So that's 2000
and Joe Biden. Yeah, go on. Give the
2008. Just want to throw that out there.
Thank you. And Joe Biden was on that stage. A bunch of those war mongers. See, look at me using clean language.
Well done. Bravo.
A bunch of those warmongers were on stage with Mike Gravel. And Mike said, shame on you, and said to the monitor that he was afraid of all of his colleagues, at which point they used the weapon of laughter at him and simply laughed at the senator who filibustered with a contraption to keep his urine in against our involvement in Vietnam. And when he was number one in the polls, that man hid in a, I have information. Witnesses tell me, inside staffers who I advised and don't want anyone to, maybe I advised, those who know don't say, he was hiding in a closet convinced that a sniper was pointing at his windows.
Are you talking about Gravel?
Yeah, I'm talking about Gravel. Right. So Gravel was not as successful as Senator Bernie Sanders is.
No.
And I'm certain that at that level of success, with the change that Senator Sanders probably still wants to bring, he's faced a lot of threats. And I want to know what they are. I'm sure Obama, and he would make it palpable. I don't think that I don't think Barry showed up with a drone program and was like, "Hey guys, this is my special library project that I want to do while I'm president." I don't think that's how Barack rolled in there. I think he
hasn't fought, but he didn't fight against it either. Clearly, it's interesting when you talk about. Let me just throw this out. Do you think that Trump also? Do you think Trump also got that speech from the mic? Because he did talk about, some kind of peaceful relationship with Russia, with Putin. And I'm not saying this because he's some sort of a good person, but he did have some instincts away from, military buildup from day one. Do you think that there was some riot act read to Trump as well?
Oh, I do. And I don't think that I don't think that idiot rapist, I don't think that convicted idiot rapist should be anywhere near our national security secrets, because I don't think he understands or follows or respects long-term issues or the embedded bureaucrats in Washington that actually know what's going on. Aside from selling national security secrets. But, what about Putin? Didn't he tried to call for a ceasefire? Too bad it wasn't in Ukraine. I mean, if he's calling for a ceasefire. Well,
we haven't called for a ceasefire either.
No, we haven't. We've in neither place. And we're like, well, we didn't call for a ceasefire because he didn't condemn Hamas. Well, just absurd. Okay, write in condemn Hamas or don't condemn Hamas. I mean, what is Hamas? Hamas is a group of terrorists that Netanyahu normalized, right? He was trying to establish as their government.
Let's get back to Bernie here, just a little more on this. I think maybe we're going to skip over it. Let's move on from Bernie. Let's move on. So other Democratic lawmakers besides Bernie, and Bernie has called for a pause. Now, you said he won't call for a ceasefire. It's very, very disappointing. He will not. But it's interesting. Even Anthony Blinken, the Secretary of State, asked the UN Security Council to call for a humanitarian pause. And interestingly,
so the kids can get more water?
It's to allow civilians to reach safe zones away from the fighting.
They're bombing the safe zones.
There's no safe zones. And
they're bombing the safe zones.
They're bombing the safe zones. Kana, Raskin, our Congressmember Raskin and Bernie have joined the call. This does not include the progressive Dems who have called for a more permanent ceasefire. That includes Cori Bush, AOC, and several others. But I find all of this performative in the extreme. The House Congress members could have voted for anybody but Hakeem Jeffries to be the House Minority Leader. They didn't. They could have voted. There are just so many different steps they could be taking, and now all they're reduced to is flapping their gums meaninglessly. Why weren't they on the mall speaking to the 100,000 or so pro-Palestine anti-war demonstrators this weekend? To me, this is a utterly ineffectual group of people.
Well, there's big bucks in war and national politics. Lots of dead bodies show up. We got lots of dead interns in my hometown. Everyone that goes to these demonstrations puts their life on the line, and I deeply respect that.
You really think so? You think that we're being watched when we're there, and there's a possibility of a pogrom or some kind of a show trial, and we'll all be executed?
I don't want to say that, but of course there's the possibility. Here's one thing I never understood as a kid, and you might laugh at this, but of course there's that possibility. First of all, it's Washington D.C., and Washington D.C. is a terrorist target. And so when I was a kid, we would always play the game of, what would be struck first, or how would someone attack us? And so I was never interested, and a lot of my Jewish boyfriends in school weren't interested either in going to Israel, because we were already growing up in a terrorist targeted zone. So, we'd prefer to go to Hanover, Pennsylvania, or my friend Seth Miller's relatives were over in Illinois somewhere on vacation. He did not want to go to Israel just because it was his Jewish home, because Israel was a target as well. But then during these marches, you're risking your life. It's, in the 60s and 70s, people were hosed down with water. It's a much different scene now, thanks to the activist Adam Eidinger. He made it a law that police in Washington have to give you 3 warnings before they begin their arrests, which Trump has ignored, or instructed people to ignore, when he had the horses stomp people in front of the White House at what is called Peace Park, because that is where the ERA Sentinels first began to protest Woodrow Wilson. And so it became a park of protest as opposed to its formal name, Lafayette Park. But Adam made certain that the police have to issue these 3 warnings. Now, this is strictly in DC. Before that, it was a beatdown. And when you are marching, regardless of whether you're marching because you're against circumcision, or you're for abortion, or you want to take women's rights away, or you want to give women's rights away, you are putting yourself at risk, because you're coming out in public. And someone who, it doesn't matter, the police can beat you down. Jefferson Sessions had a group of us arrested illegally when we were doing the first federal joint lobby session and giving everyone with a federal ID 2 free joints. He had us illegally arrested, even though we were within our letter of the law. So you're always at risk. It only takes one idiot person to show up at a rally and create violence. There are infinite stories of people that are agent provocateurs. Maybe they're hired by the police. Maybe they're just there to cause problems. But every time you stand up for something, you are putting yourself at risk. And I admire that. I admire the people that come out and say, this is so important. I understand that I may face arrest, or I understand that I may see someone who disagrees with me shoving someone around, or I understand that this area may be targeted today for violence because of we're standing up for peace.
All right, you're saying an awful lot, a lot about how to try to make change, and people who go to these rallies, and obviously including both of us, are putting ourselves out there to try to make change. I often question how impactful, how effective these types of protests are. What do you think about running for office? You did that. And I wanted to just discuss this with you briefly. I mentioned my considering a possible Green Party run. I'm leaning against it, to be honest with you. I think the Green Party is, and you ran as a Green, or you ran for the Green Party nomination, but I think it seems so not disorganized, but there doesn't seem to be a core value system there. I see very strong, strident, pro-Israel voices running for office. I remember a Green Party candidate, somebody who you know personally as well, who supported Hillary Clinton in 2008 on the ground that she's a woman and we have to support women running for office. To me, that's not progressive. You support people if you're an identity politics person and you want to vote for somebody who supports women. You should have voted for Bernie, because he was far better for women than the opponent. I did, in the primaries.
So I did vote for Bernie over the woman that didn't want to give health insurance to everyone. Yeah. That alone makes Bernie a better feminist. That Bernie wanted to insure everyone made Bernie the better feminist.
Or who also made a lot of women widows, and a lot of their spouses widowers or widowees, or whatever the right term is, because of her support for endless war. So I don't buy that your gender should determine whether you get supported by women. What about, though, running for office, rather than who you vote for, but running yourself and asking for votes? I saw this at Speakeasy Political, and they have a number of dues, like 11 dues. But before we get to those, what's your take on that? I mean, you did vie.
I did run.
You did vie.
I ran. Yeah. Memory of my late friend, Mr. J. Houston Marks, who was a member of the Green Party, which is why I ran on the Green Party, because I wouldn't have run on the Green Party without Jay. And I forget, it was one of my dear friends who called me and asked me to do it in Jay's name. I would have run as a Democrat because it's a more legitimate system. I mean, my primary was held in someone's home basement. Okay, like there, the Green Party has a lot of room to grow and be legitimate. That was an issue with me personally, being a Green supporter. And it's very. If I had had the money of David Trone. David Trone ran at the same time Jamie and I did. And I could line my guinea pig's cage with David Trone propaganda like 3, 4, 5 times over in a month of his mail campaign. And maybe I would have a shot at being legitimate for the Green Party. I didn't work that hard door to door. And I didn't really want to win. I ran as though I wanted to win because I was running in the memory of my friend J. Houston Marks, who was a politician over an artist. I was primarily an artist, and I thought, I will learn what the system is. And what I learned the system is really rigged from the get-go. When I registered to run for office, they registered me to run for 2 offices. I did not do that. They did it, but it's illegal to run, they being the registration office in Maryland. But it's illegal to run for 2 offices. So if I didn't catch that, I'm dyslexic, so I forget how to move the camera. If I didn't catch that, I would have been disqualified from running. So that alone is interesting. And there was another glitch that that if Kerry had not caught, I would have been disqualified. That the system set me up to make the error. Now, on the other hand, I found it really groovy that you can get a lot of free publicity and you have a lot of free places to be heard, schools, etc., outlets to get your messaging out. And I really appreciated that, because when Jamie Raskin and the rest of us were speaking to the schools, I had the opportunity as an artist to emphasize how important critical thinking is. One of the messages to my campaign is that, yes, we have constitutional lawyers and newscasters and businessmen holding office, but where are the artists? Artists have a distinct voice. Why aren't there more artists running for
and
change?
What was the response? Did you feel like there was a positive response to that argument, to that position, to that claim?
Yes, I feel like if I had really wanted to win and gotten my ground game on with the Green Party, that I would have done much better than the person who won the nomination. And it was very difficult to run against Nancy Wallace.
You brought up Trone, and in that race you had a multi-millionaire. I don't think he's a billionaire, but a very, very wealthy man, David Trone. You also had Kathleen Matthews, who was a well-known Washington personality from being an anchor woman for many years, and also the wife of Chris Matthews from MSNBC. And yet Jamie beat them both, Jamie Raskin. So does that tell you we sort of do have a democracy, that the game isn't completely rigged, or does it not tell you that?
Well, no. Okay, look, it was Jamie's race. You can disagree with Jamie Raskin all you like on certain positions. I very much disagree with him on certain issues. But he's a constitutional law professor. That's why I want you to run against him, Hal. David Trone doesn't know what he's doing in office. Kathleen
Well, David
Matthews
Trone, I want to just say, I think Kathleen Matthews, because I've met
she had
them
nothing
both.
to say. I adore her. But she had nothing to say. She said it all very well. I'm sorry to speak
I find her to be an intelligent, articulate person.
Beautiful.
David Trone is neither of those things. I mean, he has some measure of business savvy. He built a multi-million-dollar business,
right?
but he
came out of Pennsylvania, right?
I'm sorry.
Go on.
I don't know, but if you talk to him, he doesn't get it a lot of times. I think Kathleen Matthews does. Now, obviously, you have to be glib to be on TV. But
Kathleen Matthews was outstandingly well-spoken, and she was really good at saying America is great, and we are great, and the Democrats are great, without really saying anything. And I really enjoyed talking about her son and what he's doing in the entertainment business. She's a wonderful neighbor. She's a fantastic anchor person. It was a joy to share the stage with her. And Trone had lost a son. I believe he lost a son to opioids, which was one of the impetus behind his run. And so he had a real emotional gun to get out there. And one of the great things that I loved about running for office is that we all had messages and they got out there. And even if you don't have any money, like I was probably the poorest person there. My budget was something like $578.03. We're not really certain because the day after my primary, my car and all of my election receipts, records, publicity, etc., got swept away in a flash flood that made Channel 4 News. Thank goodness, because, how classic is that? The dog ate my homework. Oh, the flood took my election receipts. And I was still heard because the way...
Well, that's a great argument. That's a great reason to run. So let's really quickly, we only have about 8 more minutes left. Let's go through this list. There's 11 do's. Have a good reason to run. I want you to comment on all of them. Do you feel like that's critical? It seems like if you don't have a good reason to run, no one's going to believe it. Think it through. Think it through. What does that mean? Put. I know you're having a little trouble with the camera. It's sort of like backing up in a trailer. You know how when you back up in a trailer, you got to turn the wheel to the left? No, I've never backed
up on a trailer.
To go right when you turn, because the way that...
I'm just going to try and hold my head still.
I guess. Anyway, so what does that mean? Think it through. How much it's going to cost? How much time? I don't really understand that. There you go.
Have a strategy. Have a strategy. Remember, there are people. Have a strategy.
Get your elevator pitch down. So
what are you going to do when you lose? What are you going to do when you lose? How are you going to lose? Are you going to lose well?
Get your.
Were you only running to win? Get your
say
elevator
you
pitch
shouldn't
down.
run if you're not planning to. If your goal isn't to win, I don't think you should run. And that's one of the big reasons I'm skeptical about running, because there's no way I'm beating Raskin. I'm not stupid enough. I'm not deluded enough to believe I have any chance of beating him. So given that, then it's like, why run? Because I don't think there's any point, honestly, unless you have a real chance. I understand, and I feel like it's disappointing with Cornel West, because I thought, honestly, crazily enough, I think he had sort of a shot. He has a name. The 2 candidates who are likely to be the major party candidates are incredibly unpopular. Both of them. Americans want to change. And if he had run as a Green, I think he would have had a shot of doing pretty darn well. And who knows, maybe winning. I don't think you should run if you don't think you can win.
I think you should. See, that's where we differ.
But what's the point? What's the value of losing?
I learned a lot. I learned a lot about the system. I learned that the system itself is corrupt. And until you fix the system, it will all the.
But how do you fix the system? But since the system is so corrupt, you can't fix it, and you can't
how
win
do you
either.
stop? These are the questions of our generation. How do you stop genocide, and how do you stop the presidential election when you know it is bullshit, and you need to put it on reset? How do you do these things? If more people understood and ran for office, even though they knew they weren't going to win, they might understand that it is a rigged system.
I think people think that. I think people get it's rigged. I don't think this is a shock to anyone. I think this is what most people get.
See, I don't agree with you, because, it's like Hillary got the most votes, but Joe Blow in North Dakota doesn't even pay attention to who's running, let alone whether or not the system is rigged.
I think most Americans sort of don't pay attention, in part because they do think the system is rigged, and they feel like their interests aren't never going to be reflected in policy. I'm not saying I agree with a lot of people's interests may be different than mine, but I think most people don't feel that their interests are ever really reflected in government policy. I think that's why
the elevator pitch. I have a lot of elevator pitches for my comedy. Speaking to number 3.
Which is going to be, and just so you know, you can buy tickets to see Elizabeth Croydon at the Church of Satire in Hanover this Friday and Saturday nights. The link is in the description. Don't miss it. I wanted people to get that. I really should have put your link in the in your green title there. Former candidate.
Yeah,
but it's there the whole time. Everyone who's watching this video sees it. Yeah, list everyone you know. I got to use these tips for my live stream as well. We got a few more. Let's get to them, and then we're going to call
make sure your family and your boss are with you, right? Well,
yes.
That's in case of death
you
threats.
Like that? You
death
like
threats
that?
and smear campaigns. Yeah, that's important.
Because people may go after you, and also
people will go. It's not may. People will go after you. My primary was held in a basement. People went after me like
That's
nobody's business.
I was terrified. I would not have thought the Green Party nomination would have excited so much emotion.
Well, people went after me, so people will go after you. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. All right, so where are we?
Give your campaign enough time to succeed.
Yeah,
seems to make sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't come out. Don't assume that the front runner is going to be the front runner.
Join appropriate organizations.
Absolutely. It's all about the networking. And if you can politic with groups as opposed to door to door, you're saving yourself a lot of time. Good advice.
Volunteer on other campaigns. You have the time to do so.
While you're running? I would never do that.
If you're still some time away from your own race.
Oh, yeah, because you want to see how things are done. I learned a lot being around Mike Gravel's presidential campaign. I was around Kevin Zeese's Senate run. I was around, helped seat Judy Cantu's campaign twice. That was a city council run in New Mexico. It's important to see these things up close and know what you're doing.
Check the list of supporters you made earlier. Did you find everyone? So you want to get as many people as you can, I guess, to speak for you and maybe contribute if you need the money, which I guess everyone does.
Yeah. Well, you can get a map of the district that you're running in from the election office, and you can get a list of all the registered voters. So that's really where the work is. If you don't go door to door and say, hey, I'm Elizabeth Croydon, and I want you to know that I'm running for office because I would like to see a greener community in this area, and I want all the brownfields of Baltimore cleaned up and turned into sustainable community gardens. How do you feel about that? Nobody cares. Because you don't care. If you're only going to talk to the school board because 500 people show up to see you, well, then do a TED Talk or go into stand-up comedy. But you need to knock on these people's doors and be like, hey, I care. I'm a member. I'm going to read the law that the corporation writes me, and I'm going to tell you whether or not I support that law. Which I guess is do your homework.
Yeah, I was going to say that's why I jumped up to 10, because it's exactly what you were saying. Do your homework, know the issues that are important in your district and that people in your district care about. And that also, I think, goes to 11, right? It's sort of the same thing. So you know what,
Oh, yeah.
You're savvy. You're knowledgeable.
These commandments go up to 11. Yeah. Talk to 10 people that know what they're talking about, because people don't just listen to you. They listen to people they respect.
All right, so there it is. We've got through it. I'm sort of pleased about that. Very interesting. Great guidance. Elizabeth Croydon with us. Don't forget, I'm going to put this on the screen. I'll give you the last word in just a moment, but Elizabeth is going to be on stage in beautiful Hanover, which is it is really nice up there. It's just north of, or just, I guess, east, I think, of Gettysburg. So you can work in your trip to Gettysburg if you're going to make it up to the Church of Satire in beautiful Hanover.
Yeah,
so
prepare for salivation.
I made your last show. I will not make this, Elizabeth. I'm going to be in New York again, this time for a college reunion. Although my friend that you met will not be there, but others will, so we'll have fun.
That's great.
Yeah, looking forward to that. Any
Ann
final
Wilcox
words from
is up
you?
Here.
Yes, it's great to have you on as always. Final thoughts, comments, concerns, anything else you want people to think about?
Sure. Let's all just bow our heads for a minute in universal prayer. In the name of John, George, Paul, and Ringo, dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to celebrate this thing called life. Electric word, life, that means forever, and that's a mighty long time. But I'm here to tell you, there's something else, and that's rock and rollitics. Keep a song in your heart, and always do your part to make this world better and take the God out of everything. Thank you.
All right. Outstanding. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Break a leg this weekend. I guess break two.
Break
one
several.
on Saturday, Friday, one on Saturday. And
I'll break wind, records, legs, all of it.
I will be back tomorrow.